Hi friends, welcome back to English Classes Online. I am Benjamin. Today's video is about question tags in the West African Senior School Certificate Examination English. We are going to look at 2021 WASSCE. This video is part of the 2021 WASSCE preparation, and we are going to illustrate the principles of question tags with English past questions. If you are new to this channel, kindly subscribe to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Click on the bell icon as well, so that whenever new videos are uploaded on the channel, you will be instantly notified. Let's dive into the lesson without much ado. Now the highlights are as follows. What is a question tag? Rules for question tags. Illustrating with WASSCE past questions. These are the three angles from which we look at this important topic. Now, what is a question tag? A question tag is a small question at the end of a statement. Question tags are used when asking for agreement or confirmation. That's exactly the way question tags work. When you already have something as a notion or something you believe is true, and you are asking for agreement or the confirmation of the listener, you use a question tag. You can have a positive statement plus a negative question tag. For instance, you are a student, aren't you? Alright, so in this case, you find a subject pronoun coming after an auxiliary or a form of the verb to be. Then we can have a negative statement plus a positive question tag. Mary isn't a teacher, is she? And here we have a subject pronoun being used to replace the noun or noun phrase. Now, there is a connection between question tags and intonation and meaning. The intonation of a question tag shows the exact meaning of it. If the intonation of the question tag goes up, it means you are not sure and you want to know the answer. John doesn't speak Spanish, does he? So you can see that the tone goes up, and that means there is no certainty, you are not sure, and so you really want to know the answer from the listener or the addressee. If the intonation of the question tag goes down, it means you are checking or confirming information or making conversation. For instance, John doesn't speak Spanish, does he? Alright, so the intonation can determine the level of certainty or uncertainty that the speaker attaches to the statement. Alright, so let's go ahead. Now, a question tag, as you can see here, uses different forms of auxiliary verbs, and where you have a main verb in the statement, of course, you can always use the appropriate form of do in the question tag. So here we use question tags at the end of statements to ask for confirmation, as already mentioned. They mean something like all right or do you agree? All right, so then normally the structure of a question tag is what I call positive, negative, positive. In other words, where you have a positive statement, it is followed by a negative tag, and where we have a negative tag, it is followed by a positive response. For example, Mary is a singer. Positive. Isn't she? Negative tag. Yes, she is. Positive response. Then where we have a negative statement, then it is followed by a positive tag, and then what follows will be a negative response. Mary isn't a singer. Negative statement. Is she? Positive tag. No, she isn't. Negative response. That's the structure of question tags. All right. So let's explore further facts concerning the question tags. Now let's look at rules for question tags. 1. Positive, negative, positive. I have already shown this. Where you have a positive statement, you have a negative question tag, and of course what follows will be a positive response. You are a student, aren't you? Of course the response will be yes, I am. He is very busy, isn't he? Yes, he is. He was happy, wasn't he? Yes, he was. All right, so that's exactly the rule number 1 for question tags. Then let's look at the second one, rules for question tags number 2. And what we have here is negative, positive, negative. You aren't a teacher, are you? No, I am not. Now, you aren't a teacher. Negative statement. Are you? Positive tag. No, I am not. All right. Then, he isn't crazy. Is he? No, he isn't. All right. So, that's the second rule. Negative, positive, negative. And then we look at the use of auxiliary verbs. You discover that auxiliary verbs are always used in forming the tags. And where you have an auxiliary verb in the main statement, then of course the appropriate form of that auxiliary verb is used in the question, in the tag. For example, these sausages aren't delicious. Now, this is a primary auxiliary. Are they? Then we use the appropriate form of the same auxiliary verb. Then here, you haven't got a newspaper, have you? Haven't is from have, which is a primary auxiliary verb. Then have is the same form of haven't. The situation doesn't bother you, does it? You see, doesn't is a form of do, which is the third primary auxiliary verb. And then does it, that's the form of do. There is nothing to argue about. Is, also a primary auxiliary, is a form of be, which is one of the three primary auxiliary verbs. There is nothing to argue about. Is there? So you see that auxiliary verbs feature prominently when we are forming question tags. He can't see things from my viewpoint. Can he? See, so can't is a modal auxiliary verb, and then the appropriate form of can is used here. We have can't in the main statement, and then we have can in the tag. Pass me the salt. All right, so of course this has to do with a request or an imperative, and we use the appropriate auxiliary verb in place of that. Pass me the salt. Can you, or could you, or will you? So any of these can be used, and each of them is an auxiliary verb. Don't do anything silly, will you? All right, so you can see when you have an imperative sentence, then you can use will you. All right, if I say, stop making a noise, will you? All right, that's an imperative. Then we have rules concerning the uses of do and other auxiliaries. Of course, we have seen the massive use of auxiliaries, but let's look at the uses of do's, the forms of do and other auxiliaries. Now here we use do or does to make a question in the simple present tense. All right. For example, I, you, or we, or they go. Of course, you can discover that when we use the verb go, or want, or like, all right, then of course it is either do. Do is used for I, for you, for we, or for they. Do I, do you, do we, do they? Do they go? All right. Then does he, does she, does it? All right. So the appropriate form of do for the third person singular is does. Then where we have the positive, you speak English, don't you? All right. You speak English, don't you? That means, do you speak English? Now we use the appropriate form of do because even if we are asking a yes or no question, we use do as well. So if we say you speak English, don't you? Then if we reconstruct the question to be a yes or no question instead of a tag question, we can simply say, do you speak English? Alternatively, we can say, if we are just looking for confirmation or agreement, we can say, you speak English, don't you? All right. Then here again, he speaks English, doesn't he? Now the same form, the same does is what we use if we ask a yes or no question. in relation to he. Does he speak English? Does he speak English? This is a yes or no question. If we have to convert it to a tag question, then we begin with a sentence. He speaks English. Doesn't he? All right. So that is exactly the way it works, and I hope you have seen that quite clearly. That's the way it works. All right. So let's proceed. Then here we are looking at question tags, rule number 5 concerning the use of helping verbs. Alright, we use helping verbs in the main clause to form a question tag. For example, you will come to my party, won't you? You see, so we can use a helping verb. Will is a helping verb. You will come to my party, won't you? We are going to holiday tomorrow. We are going to holiday tomorrow, aren't we? Tom has cut the grass neatly, hasn't he? Then, of course, we use the verb to do for a sentence that doesn't have a helping verb. That's where we have the main verb in the main statement. Then the tag will use the appropriate form of do. For example, he likes drawing, doesn't he? Your cat liked fish, didn't it? You buy a new book, don't you? So where we have a lexical or main verb in the statement, then we use the appropriate form of do. All right. Now, rules for question tags. We want to look at special cases here, and this has to do with where you have let's, after a sentence with let's, we use shall we. For example, let's go to the library after school. Shall we? Let's study English tomorrow. Shall we? Then where you have I am, the negative question tag is, the appropriate one is aren't I when it is negative. All right, where you have I am, it is aren't I. Of course, it's no longer quite proper to use am I not. All right, that has no contraction. Am I not has no contraction. So we prefer a very ungrammatical contraction, which is correct for question tags. Aren't I? Because this has become accepted by convention. One aspect of language is conventionality. Is what is generally agreed, as proper usage by the speech community. It becomes quite correct because it is acceptable to the users of the language. So, aren't I has become the acceptable tag question form when you use I am. For instance, I am the first to get into the office. Aren't I? I am the first to pick one of the options. Aren't I? So, for example, I am still the leader of the group. Aren't I? I am going out. Aren't I? So those are the acceptable tags. Then where we have imperatives, if the main clause is an imperative, we mainly use the tag will you. For instance, be here at 8 in the morning. Will you? clean your table, will you? All right, so I earlier mentioned that where we have an imperative is a command, an order, or an instruction. And where you have that kind of sentence, the appropriate tag is will you. The use of tag pronouns after a clause with somebody, someone, everybody, everyone, nobody, no one, the tag pronoun is normally they. So here we have an indefinite pronoun, and you know indefinite pronouns do not refer to any person in particular. All right, so when we say somebody told you the story, didn't they? No one came while I was out, did they? See, so that is exactly the way it is done. Then the other one is after a clause with nothing, the tag pronoun is normally it. Nothing is wrong, is it? Nothing is wrong, is it? All right, so then negative adverbs. We have adverbs with a negative sense in the statement clause, and this leads to the use of an affirmative tag, e.g., hardly, scarcely, rarely, never, etc. So these are negative adverbs because their meaning is basically negative. Sam never comes on time means Sam does not come on time at all. Sam never comes on time. Does he? They rarely visit their parents, do they? All right, so you can see that where we have such negative adverbs in the statement, then the tag that follows has to be positive, in line with the principle of negative, positive, negative. All right. Okay, so let's move a step further and look at rules number 8. A recap of the rules here essentially is what we are going to do. We want to have an overview of some of the rules already mentioned. All right. Now here, rule number 1, positive statements clauses make the question clause negative. In other words, positive, negative, positive. For example, it's raining, isn't it? The earth goes round the sun, doesn't it? Rule number 2, negative statement clauses make the question clause positive. He didn't arrive yesterday, did he? It's not very warm, is it? Rule number 3, negative adverbs are considered as negative statements, as we have already seen. For example, I am hardly ever late. Am I? She barely noticed me, did she? All right. Rule number 4, the question clause repeats the auxiliary verb. Already we have seen the rules as they apply to the use of auxiliary verbs. Let's look at examples again. We should leave, shouldn't we? You won't be late, will you? So when we have an auxiliary verb used in the main statement, then we have the appropriate form used also in the tag. Rule number 5, use the auxiliary verb do even where it has been omitted in the statement, as when we use a lexical or main verb. For example, you enjoy football, don't you? He wants to leave, doesn't he? Rule number 6, negative pronouns are treated as negative statement clauses. For example, nobody said a word, did they? So nobody here means it has a negative connotation, so it has to attract a positive tag. No one knows, do they? Again, as we earlier mentioned, you always use the pronoun they in place of indefinite pronouns. Rule number 7, imperatives beginning with let use shall or will in the question clause. All right. For instance, if you say let's go into the class, shall we? Or if we use a direct imperative addressing the listener directly. For instance, go to the bank at once, will you? All right, so those are, the examples of how we use them. Then let's look at a recap of the examples, some of the examples that we have used. For instance, where you have a statement and you have a tag. You are a student. This is positive. Aren't you? Negative. And like I mentioned earlier, if you have to provide a response, then what follows this negative tag will essentially be a positive response. You are a student. Aren't you? Yes, I am. Then here, you like tea, don't you? Yes, I do. They have left, haven't they? Yes, they have. They were busy, weren't they? Yes, they were. You will leave, won't you? Yes, I will. All right, so these are the appropriate structures and rules for question tags. Then we are now going to look at past West African Senior School Certificate Examination questions from 2013 to 2020. We want to look at the questions that featured question tags, and then we will be looking at these principles that we have learned. Number 1, he has stopped being foolish. Then we have option A, doesn't he? B, does he? C, hasn't he? D, isn't it? Of course, this is from June 2013, question 49. Now, you have to look at the verb used here, has stopped. So you can see that the primary auxiliary has, which is a form of have, was used here. So we have to use the appropriate form of has. He has stopped being foolish. Hasn't he? All right, so C is the answer. Question 2, the musicians have not arrived from Sierra Leone. You see, again, we look at the auxiliary verb have, and we have to use the appropriate form of it. And here it is present participle. All right. So let's look at the options. Had they, we eliminate it because what we have is present, and if we have a present tense of the verb in the main statements clause, then we have to have the same tense in the tag clause. So had they is eliminated, is not correct. Hadn't they is also eliminated. So here we have positive, so we will be looking for the negative. So haven't they is the appropriate answer because we have negative and the principle is negative positive. All right, so since we have negative here, we should have no, this is really not correct. You see, so we can't have two negatives. Okay, So the musicians have not arrived from Sierra Leone. Have they? So D is the answer, based on the principle of negative positive. Since we have negative here, we should have positive in the tag. Question 3. Mother said she saw Alfred. So this is positive and this is past tense. So you have to look at the positivity or negativity of the statement. Then another thing you should consider is the tense of the verb. So here we have a positive statement and a past tense. So we will be looking for a negative tag and a past tense. So mother said she saw Alfred. Did she will not be correct. She didn't will not be correct. She did is not correct. Didn't she is correct. Mother said, didn't she? Again, you can see that because said is a main verb, we use the appropriate form of do, which is didn't, the past tense of do. Okay, so let's look at question number 4. All right. It's been smooth so far. It's been smooth so far. The appropriate is isn't it? It's been is positive. Isn't it is negative. So this is taken from June 2014, question 41. Question 5. Bakari can lift this heavy log. Now, this is positive, so negative should be can't he, because it's the appropriate form of can. Since we have can here, it should be can't he. All right, so let's proceed. Question 6. You like ice cream, don't you? Because this is present. Don't you? You like ice cream, don't you? All right, so that is exactly what should be the answer. You like ice cream, don't you? This is from June 2016, question 41. She is not the right candidate for the job. Negative statement. She is not. Is she? Of course, we also have to look at the gender of the subject. Is he is not correct. All right. Although this could be a typo. Something was omitted here. So let's correct this. This should be is she. So this word is she. All right. So that's what we have here. And that essentially is the answer. Is it is not correct. Was she is not correct because the tense is present. Isn't it is also not correct. She is not the right candidate for the job. Is she? All right. Question 7. You have to be in school early. You have to be in school early. All right. Shouldn't you? Shall you? Haven't you? Aren't you? All right. So you can see that you have to is a kind of obligation or necessity. And what the kind of modal that will reflect that is shouldn't you? You have to be in school early, shouldn't you? This is taken from WASSCE of June 2017, question 59. Now let's look at question 9. Here, we should assist the poor. Shouldn't we? Of course, you can see it here. No, that's this particular one. Well, let me wipe some of these things to ensure that we don't get confused. All right. Okay, so question 9, we should assist the poor, shouldn't we? This we have seen. Question 10, if she had known, she wouldn't have come. Wouldn't. So we need a positive one. Could she know? Couldn't she know? Wouldn't she know? Would she? She wouldn't have come. Would she? This is WASSCE June 2019, question 54. 11. Mary shouldn't have disobeyed the teacher. Should she? All right, so should she? This is from WASSCE of June 2020. Then question 51. That's from question 51 of June 2020 WASSCE. Then question 12. He isn't coming here. Is he? All right, so it is negative, positive. Present tense, present tense. All right, so that's exactly the way question tag questions should be answered. You observe the principles. All right, so that is how it has been in today's video. We have been able to look at question tags and how they are used, and we have also gone through some practical WAEC past questions on question tags, and we have been able to solve them using the principles of question tag formation that we learned in this video. I hope you have learned some lessons that will enable you to answer questions on question tags, whether it is in the WAEC, NECO, SSCE, or NAPTEP, or even JAMB exams. Once you use the principles learned in this video, you will always get it right. So I want to thank you for being part of today's video. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, kindly do so and hit the notification bell as well, so that you will receive notifications whenever new videos are uploaded. Thank you for being part of today's lesson. See you in the next video, and bye for now.